An electronics department employee gets a written warning for his hair, while the manager's favorite employees ignore dress code rules and nothing happens. But what happens when this discrimination becomes the last straw? If you have a similar discrimination story from your workplace, please send it to the email address in the description.
My name is Marcus Thompson, and I am 32 years old. I was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, and I spent the last 4 years of my life working in the electronics department at Walmart. I am a man who stands 6 feet 5 inches tall, with broad shoulders and dark brown skin. I always keep my hair short and neat. I have a thin beard on my face, and I wear glasses. People always tell me I look professional. I pay attention to my work clothes, always keeping my Walmart blue vest and name tag clean. Because I need this job. I am the sole caregiver for my 9-year-old daughter, Destiny, and I need every penny. In March of 2023, I was working shifts from 8 in the morning to 5 in the evening at the Walmart store on Roswell Road. The store was located in one of Atlanta's northern suburbs, and the customer profile was quite mixed. They were people coming from wealthy neighborhoods, as well as middle-class families. The electronics department was in the back left corner of the store. I spent my days among aisles filled with massive television screens, gaming consoles, computers, and accessories. I loved this department because I was interested in technology and enjoyed helping customers. My department manager, Brad Hutchinson, was a middle-aged man in his 40s. Medium height, slightly overweight, wheat red eye. He had a forced smile constantly on his face, but his eyes never smiled. They were cold, calculating eyes. He had been working at Walmart for 12 years and saw himself as part of this system. Brad's management style was soft toward certain people, but quite harsh toward others. I was unfortunately in the second category. The first week of March was a normal Monday morning. I entered the store at 8 in the morning, opened my locker in the changing room, and put on my blue vest. I took one last look at myself in the mirror. Everything was in place. My hair was neatly cut with a fade. The sides were completely shaved to zero. The top was a bit longer but still looked professional. My beard was also neat. I walked out to the store and headed to the electronics department. The morning shift was usually calm. The customers were not yet crowded. I was organizing shelves, checking price tags, and doing inventory counts. Around 10 o'clock, Brad came to the department. He had a coffee cup in his hand and was looking at his phone as he walked. When he saw me, he stopped. Brad approached me and looked me up and down from head to toe. There was a strange expression on his face. He asked me if we could talk for a minute. "Of course, Mr. Hutchinson," I said, and followed him to his small office. The office was at the end of a narrow corridor right behind the electronics department. Inside was filled with documents, boxers, and old equipment. Brad sat behind his desk, and I sat in the chair across from him. After hesitating for a moment, Brad said he needed to talk about my hair. Something inside me broke. My hair! What was wrong with my hair? Brad said that according to company dress code policy, hair should not be excessively stylized or draw attention. He claimed that my haircut was vaguely in violation of this rule. I looked at him in shock. My hair was at most 1 centimeter long. It could not be neater. I asked Brad if this was a joke. Brad seriously said this was not a joke, that several customers had complained about my hair. I asked which customers. Brad told me he could not give names, that there was a confidentiality policy. My mind was confused. I had been working here for 4 years, and no customer had ever said anything about my hair. On the contrary, most customers said I was helpful and professional. Brad continued and told me he was giving me a formal verbal warning, that if I did not change my hair, I would receive a written warning. When I left the office, my heart was bleeding inside. I returned to the electronics department, but could not focus. I tried to smile at customers, but only Brad's words were spinning in my mind. During my lunch break, I went to the break room. There, I noticed other employees sitting there while 3 people were in front of the television. One of them was Jake Morrison. Jake was a skinny, blonde kid in his 20s. He worked with me in the electronics department, but he was Brad's obvious favorite. Jake's hair reached down to his shoulders, tied in a ponytail. His beard was unkempt. It looked like 3 days old, but messy. His vest was wrinkled and had coffee stains on it. He did not even wear his name tag half the time, but Brad never said anything to Jake. Jake came 15 to 20 minutes late every morning, and Brad ignored it. The afternoon shift was even harder. Around 3 o'clock, a young woman came and said she wanted to buy a gaming console. I showed her the options, explained the prices. The woman was very kind and eventually bought a PlayStation 5. She must have been very pleased with me because on her way to the checkout she saw Brad and told him how helpful I had been. Brad thanked the woman but did not even look at me. Ended at 5 in the evening. As I took off my vest in the changing room, there was an uneasiness inside me. On the drive home, I continued to think in my car. This was not fair. Why was Jake's hair not a problem, but mine was? Why could white employees ignore dress code rules, but I was getting a warning for 1 centimeter of hair? The next day, Tuesday morning, I went to work again at 8. This time, Brad came early in the morning and headed straight for me. He asked if I had changed my hair. I told him I had not made a barber appointment yet, that I was waiting for the weekend. Brad said this was unacceptable, that I needed to take care of it today. There was a threat in his voice. During my lunch break, I left the store and went to a nearby barber shop. I told the barber to shave it completely to 0. The barber was surprised because my hair was already very short, but I insisted. Half an hour later, when I left the barber shop, my head was completely shaved. When I looked in the mirror, I could not recognize myself. It was as if a part of me was missing. When I returned to the store, Brad saw me and nodded approvingly. "Now, that is better," he said. "Customers will not be bothered anymore." And anger rose inside me, but I suppressed it. I needed this job. I had Destiny's school expenses, my rent, my bills. I could not risk losing my job. But the story did not end there. In the 3rd week of March, a new employee started working. His name was Tyler Bennett. A was a tall, athletic, brown-haired kid in his 20s. Tyler's hair was even longer than Jake's, reaching almost to his waist. He never tied his hair up. He left it loose. On the first day, Brad introduced Tyler to the department and asked everyone to help him. I looked at Tyler and felt another pain inside. Days passed and no dress code warning was made about Tyler. Brad was constantly smiling at Tyler, joking with him, and they went to lunch together. I was just watching. Every morning as I looked in the mirror at my shaved head, I felt something dying inside me. In the first week of April, things got even worse. Brad called me to his office. He was sitting at his desk, and there was a document in front of him. "Marcus, I need to talk to you about customer service," he said. I asked what happened. Brad claimed that some customers had complained about me, that they said my approach was too aggressive. This was completely absurd. I was always kind and helpful. I had high scores in customer satisfaction surveys. Brad continued and gave me a written warning. He put the document in front of me and asked me to sign it. I looked at the document. It had ridiculous accusations written on it: being rude to customers, inadequate product knowledge, incompatibility with teamwork. None of these were true. I told Brad I could not sign these, that these accusations were baseless. Brad looked at me coldly and said if I did not sign, the disciplinary process would become even more severe. At that moment, I made a decision. I could not tolerate this anymore. I refused to sign the document and told Brad I wanted to speak with Human Resources. Brad flinched. Human Resources. He said it was not necessary, but I insisted. Brad finally agreed and gave me the Human Resources department number. The next day, I met with Michelle Rodriguez, Walmart's Human Resources manager. Michelle was a woman in her mid-40s, medium height, olive-skinned, with black hair and a serious expression. She wore glasses and always dressed in formal clothes. Her office was on the front side of the store, on the management floor. Michelle invited me in and sat down before asking what happened. I told her the whole story. The warning about hair, that Jake and Tyler were not subject to the same rules, the baseless customer complaints, and the written warning. Michelle listened to me carefully and took notes. When I finished speaking, Michelle said she would investigate this situation and contact me again. 2 weeks passed and I did not hear from Michelle. During this time, Brad's attitude became even harsher. He was giving me the hardest tasks. He made me carry heavy boxers, made me do inventory counts alone, and restricted my breaks. Jake and Tyler, however, were working comfortably. While they dealt with customers, I was opening boxers in the back. At the end of April, Michelle finally called me to her office again. There was hope inside me. Maybe justice would finally be served. When I entered Michelle's room, her facial expression was not promising. She sat down and looked directly at me. "Marcus, I investigated your complaint," she said. "I spoke with Brad and other managers. I also reviewed customer records." Michelle continued. She said that Brad was right about the dress code, that the company policy was clear. My hair could be vaguely considered excessively stylized. Regarding Jake and Tyler, Michelle said they had also received warnings, but that it was not my business. This was clearly a lie because there had been no change in Jake and Tyler's hair. Finally, Michelle said that if I was not comfortable with this, I could transfer to another department. Another department? I had been working in the electronics department for 4 years. This was my field, my expertise. Why should I transfer? I was not the problem. Brad's discrimination was the problem. As I left the store that day, there was a great disappointment inside me. I got in my car and leaned on the steering wheel. My eyes filled with tears. I had been loyal to this company for 4 years. I had come on time every day, done my job carefully, helped customers. But what was the result? I was treated differently, just because of my color. When I got home, my daughter Destiny greeted me at the door. "Daddy, where is your hair?" she asked. "I had it cut," I said. "But why?" "You were so handsome," she said. My heart ached. I hugged her and told her everything would be okay. But I did not even believe myself anymore. In the first days of May, I could no longer bear it. Looking in the mirror every morning was torture. Going to the store, seeing Brad's face, watching Jake and Tyler's privileged treatment, was eating me up inside. On a Thursday, during lunch break, as I sat in the break room, an elderly cleaning worker came up to me. Her name was Dorothy. She was 65 years old and had been working at Walmart for 20 years. Dorothy was a short woman with white hair and a kind face. She sat down next to me and began to speak in a low voice. "Son, I heard what happened to you," she said. "I have been working in this store for 20 years, and it is always the same story. Some people always get different treatment. I also experienced similar things years ago. But you know, sometimes the strongest move is to leave. It is to show them that you do not need them." Dorothy's words sank into me. That night, after Destiny fell asleep, I sat at my desk and wrote my resignation letter. When I went to the store in the morning, I left it on Brad's desk. When Brad read the letter, he seemed surprised. But there was also a secret satisfaction on his face, as if this was what he wanted. He told me when my last paycheck would be paid and wished me good luck. That was it. 4 years of hard work, loyalty, and dedication ended with just a good luck. I left Walmart and went into a long job search. We went through financially difficult days. I used my savings, borrowed money from friends, but I never regretted it. Because I was able to protect my dignity, a person can give up everything for their dignity.
Marcus's story is a painful example of the systemic discrimination that still exists in American workplaces. The same rules are applied differently for different people. Justice in the workplace only remains on paper. If you have experienced something similar, know that you are not alone. These stories must continue to be told and heard.